working, man. Sometimes you just gotta go with it, you just got to, and that's what I thought I'd do, and I don't even know if the old YouTube's working. I've got some weird thing going on where it's telling me the stream, I don't know what's going on, and is it crucial that I know that you're there? Like, if I take myself back to the center of the universe, do I need to know that you're there before I exist? Does my voice, should it be broadcast purely from the sound alone? Right? And if there's no drum to hear that, then why is that the meaning of a voice? It's a profound question on this late night ride, and whether or not you're there is it's relevantly irrelevant, if that makes sense. It's the relevance about it being irrelevant really does come back to how much of a magi you are, how much of a phantasmagorical you are. And this is the thing I've been learning all month, because to me it's a primal state of imagination, would be this same ability to place yourself in a bubble that does not require whether or not people are either watching or not watching. Think about it. Those are just as important. They're just as important. And we negotiate who we are based on who we want to watch us and who we don't want to watch us. And what people are saying and what they're not saying. All those things are factors in who we are. And this alone should be the only ontological proof that you and I could possibly need to understand this Osiran reality. It becomes impossible to ignore, and that's a lot to kind of absorb. It's a lot to think about. And I'm going to start us off on a flight here. We're going to track the sun for a while. Happy solstice to all of you. I hope you're having a wonderful day. I'm not planning on being on camera. I've been wanting to try this for a while. A lot of closeted gay men have been complaining about me not having a beard lately. I could say that's why, but that's why I'm not on camera. But that's actually not why. I have always felt that the intimacy of voice is a closer reach. And if you can let go of your visual hooks, you get to imagine me however you want. The complaints I've gotten is how ugly my face is, or how horrible it is that I'm exposing it, and that I even have a face. And it's been exactly the response that I want. When I have a beard, I have these sores that grow on the skin. And I try and clean them, and I try and take care of them, but it's It's very difficult. Additionally, when I sleep at night, there's this constant sort of like, what the fuck is this? What is this? And more importantly, when I have a beard, all these people around me start living their life based on whether or not I approve of them. And a lot of people get off on that. A lot of people find that defines them, which is what I was talking about when we first started. What it is that defines you, what it is that defines me, whether or not I need people to be on stream. I see chat now, which is great. So if you got anything to say, feel free to tip the boat, because we're on an airship here, and right now we're tracking the sun. We're going to track that for a while. Right now the sun is right above Venus and Mercury and outside of Gemini, and we're look at that, we're banking right now. The robot is banking. The robot's doing this right now. That's cool. But if you look down the bottom right, it's giving you a time. We're going really fast. We're really peeling through time right now. But we're aiming for the sun, and we just want to track how the constellations move in the here and now, because the analemma, the other side of the roller coaster, is here. If you think about roller coasters, if you are not aware of what the purpose of a roller coaster is, and you get on a roller coaster, you could very easily leave the roller coaster and describe an experience where you were doing so well that everyone was just clicking along and all of us were rising at a steady rate, and everything that was happening to us was just nothing but positive growth, and we were aligned with God, or we were aligned with science, or we were aligned with Psy-God, or we were none of us were doing the wrong things or worshiping the wrong science or the wrong God or the wrong genitals or whatever it is. And that all of a sudden in the crust, the crust, the upper crust of our elevation through this experience, there was a sudden crash, right? Because the roller coaster reaches the top of that click, 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 click. That's the anticipation. It's crucial exercise in a roller coaster. Some roller coasters don't even know this, which is sad. They're like, no one has attention span for the click, click, click. But the click, click, click is the turning of the jack-in-the-box. Imagine the instantaneous society insisting that the jack-in-the-box come right away. And in the future, because everything has to be downloaded so fast, you'll go to class and you'll learn about the jack-in-the-box. They'll say, yeah, the jack-in-the-box is built in this thing where you turn this handle and it opens up. Turn this handle, it opens up. Turn this handle, it opens up. Turn this handle, it opens up. And you contextually have no idea what's going on because the space between the notes have been compressed. Kind of like how seeing a visual of me might actually compress the meaning. That the meaning might actually have even more depth if you couldn't see my face. Hi, Teresa. Good to see you. It's good to see all of you. And this roller coaster, again, if you didn't know that it was a roller coaster, you might consider that the beginning, the clicking, was the highlights of your life, and that everything that happened after it was just this bludgeonedly journey through this shitstorm of just fucking piss and goo and vomit and chili cheese fries and kids' diapers and seagull poop and all the other things that you almost hit or you almost thought you were going to run into as you're screaming down the roller coaster doing the loop-to-loops. And the entire process would be generated in your mind as a traumatic falling from grace, as a rejection from God, as an insistence of how evil you fucking are, because who else would do a loop-to-loop except for some divine punishment that you clearly deserved long before you got here, and that you would stop off that roller coaster and get off that ride and go home and have no fucking clue that it was a roller coaster. And the entire time you're on that ride and you look next to you and there's another person and it's me. And I'm fucking having a ball. And I'm looking at you And I really want you to have fun too. I want you to enjoy the ride. And I can't convey to you how much fun this ride is because you think that I'm not taking this ride seriously. You think that I am not fully invested just in the extent of the danger that is befalling us, and none of us deserve this kind of turmoil and the falsities and the lies of the anticipation of the click, 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 and all the ideal dreams of a perfect marriage or a perfect job or a perfect pension under a perfect American stars with the perfect star-spangled fucking stripes, all that Rocky Top shit. And it's taken away from you because you had the nerve to fucking look deeper. And so you feel twisted and angst because the world lies to you and it's a prison planet and you're looking for that sucking voice to guide you deeper, deeper into this salt mine of what a shithole this place is. And you meet ogres and orcs and you overcome them and you establish this whole new rules where hyenas are in charge of the fucking government. And no one actually does anything wrong unless 12 hyenas agree that what they've did is sufficient enough for them to call it wrong. And then and only then does any of us have to actually be fucking responsible. I just cussed, sorry. I don't want to cuss. I didn't like how much I was cussing earlier. But that one of us has to finally be responsible for what we do. But only because 12 of us said so. It's the only proof we need. It's great to be here. Thanks for being here on the ride, Teresa. Oh, look at that. Art Matters is in Scotland. Glad to hear it. This seriousness thing is one of the hardest things to convey. What I mean is the sincerity that I have for the pain that you're feeling as the chili cheese fries are coming up. And you worked your whole life for those chili cheese fries, didn't you, buddy? And you were promised if you were a good boy and you paid attention in school that you would make enough money to have your own chili cheese fries, and you have them, and now this fucking ride is turning us inside out, and there's a log flume, there's water now. What the fuck's this? It's bleach water too? And your chili cheese fries are not even close to what you pictured. And I do not... Here's the thing. You miss my sincerity because you don't think that I think that's important. I know that's important. And where you miss me is this. I think that the only reason why this place means so much is because you lose your chili cheese fries. The entire psychic purpose of the roller coaster is to click, 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 because it places you in a hypnotic state of anticipation. It hypnotizes every cell in your body and places them on attention. And all the magic of the thalamus, all the dopamine that it extracts from its own anticipation games are now overridden because literally someone has walked through the casino with the largest barrel of money, a train car full of money has just been brought in through the casino, and there's a countdown clock on it. And no matter what games you are playing in your mind when you see this come through, everybody stops. The entire floor of the fanciest, most powerful casino in the world, all that attention ends because this outside promise comes in. And this whole thing is built on you not knowing. It's built on you not understanding what's about to happen. That's why the good roller coasters, you can't see shit. All you see is sky. All you see is blue. You're looking at the illusion of everything's perfect. And you think that illusion isn't real, but it is, because perfection is emptiness. Perfection is cyan. It's called OOOOFF. Wolf is the base of reality, and it's the first colors come from the lowest decimal place of hexadecimal. So your R's are the highest resolution, your greens are the middle, and the blues are the lowest. So FFFFFF is solid white because all your reds, your greens, and blues are on. But OOOOFF is your reds are off, your greens are off, and your blues are on. And it is, the journey itself is only fueled by the anticipation of what's to come. It would be the only reason why you would be able to grow. If you understood what the sun was, you might not leave the husk. But if you picture the sun as this just gigantic, just amazing thing where everything's perfect, it gives you enough oomph to grow. And the big mystery here really does come down to just remembering the roller coaster. You have more fun on the roller coaster because you want the anticipation to flow. You lose dopamine points every time you ride it again. It's still fun, don't get me wrong. But you lose points. You have to develop a different hook. The relationships work the same way, by the way, that when you pair up with a mate, there's a certain receptor that's fired, but only for a certain amount of time, and then another receptor fires. And so the entire intrinsic nature of a relationship involves this handshake where at first you hit them with this sweet stuff, but then you really need something longer term to hit on. And this is why the roller coaster is built the way it is. And if you think about every single person who gets on a roller coaster, if they did not know, it would be horrible. The seatbelt would become the bonds of slavery. The seatbelt would become the clockwork orange, prying open of the eyes. The entire experience would be meant to jar and derange and turn you evil or gay or whatever the hot thing is to say someone's, fucked up as, whatever it is. And that experience would allow you, here's the thing, to experience the same kind of dilation, if not more, versus if you did know and the entire experience was exhilarating. Not all negativity is bad. And in a way, we could look at people that are having a negative experience. I freaked the fuck out at a haunted house when I was 5 because I couldn't believe the betrayal that other adults were around and given permission to do this shit to people. I'm just saying that's how I'm not saying it's right, but when I was 5 or 6 or whenever, that's how I encountered haunted houses. And I want to tell you something. Only recently have I thought about it in this way. Because typically I just took it as, well, it's because you're a wimp. It's because emotionally you're afraid and you'd be the first person to die in the wild. And I think all those are true too. That's fine. I'm a fucking badass person. I don't mind being a wimp. I'm lovely on so many different ways. Even if I don't have fucking hair on my face, it's fine. But what I'm trying to get to is that as we navigate these experiences, keep in mind that the more out of control you feel, the more dilated you're going to be by by the emotions that are flowing. One of the reasons why it's harder to cure PTSD, notice I said harder, is the same reason why it's harder to cure addiction, certain kinds of addiction, because to me, the way to release the hooks of addiction is to go back to that state in a fully, I'm going to use the word sovereign here, way. With your full autonomy, go back to a place where you thought you did not have your full autonomy. And this is why Luke left the cave. This is why Luke left the cave. And he said, well, I have to go. I got to go fucking kill a tauntaun, right? I mean, that was basically a poor innocent fucking tauntaun died because Luke was a pussy and couldn't face Vader and had to leave and come back later. And it's fine, but it's just no one thinks about the tauntaun. It's kind of fucked up. Like I think that they could have worked something out where they could have cuddled. The tauntaun and Luke could have just exchanged fucking body heat for a while. It's like Pi, that boat, with the fucking tiger. I didn't even see that movie. I should see that movie. But yeah. Yeah, I'm all over the place, aren't I? I'm all over the place. What can I say? I'm all over the place. So, whoops, I didn't mean to do that. Yeah, we're tracking the sun. If you're just joining us, happy Friday evening. It's 9:06. I don't know why I'm online. I don't know. I really don't know. I really don't. Oh, yeah. Wait. I do know. I actually have a list. God, I totally forgot. I'm glad I wrote this down. I'm behind. I don't care. But Neil deGrasse Tyson just gave a rebuttal to Terrence Howard. I think his name's Terrence Howard. I'm getting confused because there's so many people here. And Neil deGrasse Tyson is giving a rebuttal to Terrence Howard, who appeared on the Joe Rogan show. And he's kind of ripping him a new butthole, Like scientifically, he's ripping him a new butthole on the air. And he's certainly doing it politely. And as you're listening to it, I'm watching the archetypes of the truth movement being used in the way there always are. That we tend to take the crusted edges of things and use that as a crucible, and we crucify people in that way. And it's kind of like we skewer pork and we pass the pork out in the food court. And so, like just with it being Pride Month, for example, like weird trans people, right? People who are like super weird but are trans. And in a few months, it'll be weird political people. And a few months ago, it was January 6th people, or it's COVID people, or it's, we tend to parade our own weirdness, spectacles in front of ourselves. And we get to make fun of that spectacle because it's the only way that we can, just be more honest about our cannibalism, really. But ultimately, we're just eating each other. I think ultimately that's really what's happening, is we're eating each other. And I don't mean that in, hey, it's bad. Right? I don't mean that as in they're bad. I think that the more honest we are about eating each other, the more we understand what fame is. The more we understand what all this is. Lao Yao Tzu says, I don't respect either man. I think both Terrence and Tyson are misguided. And wouldn't that be who you'd see? That we will place the ones the ones that turn into foam. When you watch a wave crest, the crispiest edges of the wave turn into foam. The power of the fractal of that motion converts that water, converts it into a film. And this is the cream. It's the same thing that exists. The cream that rises to the top. It's not really cream. It's the blue that you look at the sky when you're riding the roller coaster, isn't it? It has no substance. It's the beginnings of things. And we fear change collectively, as we should. I say should because it proves how much we value what we have, right? To fear change is to love what you have. So fear isn't bad. Fear is a sign of love. And if you didn't love what you have, you wouldn't fear change, would you? Why fear what, right? No reason to. So as you watch the charade of two people arguing about the insistence of a certain kind of science, not one of them actually comes out and tells you what science is. If you look up science, science is the study of knowing. To know is to sigh. To sigh is to know. It's not the study of truth. Science is not spelled philoso-ence. Phila-ence. It's not called that. It's not a love, or there's no sophia in science, I should say. Sophia-ence, right? It's not called sophia-ence. Wow. That would be the word for it. Sophia-ence. We don't study sophia-ence, do we? We study science, and science is what is known. And when you unpeel the scientific method, you discover a huge, dirty secret. Guess what? The only definition of what is known is that which is agreed upon by a collective. That the only thing that exists in science is if what I experience, you can experience too. And that it has to be repeatable. This is the only definition of the scientific method. And if something has to be repeatable, that means the only literal thing that can be real is something that happens more than once. The first tree that fell in a forest did not happen, did not occur. According to science, it was impossible. No one could prove it. No one had any way of knowing whether or not it was true. Therefore, it was false. I'm not making any of this up. This is exactly how it works. And the only way that I can get you to prove that something is true is if I set this up and put this here and put this here and do this, and something happens, and then you do that same spell, you go practice that exact same ritual that the same thing happens, then it's true. And what that is called, the reason why we call that science, is because it is the knowing of a thing. Which means to know something is to know what others have verified for you on your behalf. And when you follow the chain of command, the verification never actually makes it to the hash. Sorry, some of you don't do encryption, but you never get back to the original receipt. It's never verified. It's only corroborated. That's all it is. And I don't even think this is a fault of science, because I think what science is the invention of objectivity, and that the tenet, the crucial definition of objectivity is majority rule. The only tenet of objectivity, therefore science, which science also says it just by the word knowing itself, is the fact that plural, this only can happen plurally. Every single personal experience that you've ever had is false according to science. You cannot argue with that. You cannot say that's wrong. If you try and say that that's wrong, you do not understand science. And I'll give you an analogy. If you want to take the SAT on this, the analogy is very simple. The analogy is my client is innocent. The analogy proves the same way because the structure of the words prove what I just said would have to be the way. The only truth that you could possibly have is a plural moment. It's the only way. There are no personal experiences in science, which means you do not fucking exist. And this is what we would think when we came from a collective that didn't have its own, I'm going to use the word pronoun, that there was a time when children would have been, I would have been called James the Lesser, by the way. My brother would have been called James the Greater. I would have been called James the Lesser. Why? Because we did not have the complexity back then for the profundity of names. The numerous names that we have first, middle, and last name now. Why? Because our capacity to understand each other has grown. We have a larger resolution on who each other is. And if you backtrack that, there was a time where the family itself was a single unit. It was a single identity. And you knew that family as, this is James the Lesser and James the Greater. All of this is James. This is the house of James. And that conscious understanding is giving you a clue about how blind we would need to be now, just on a greater spectrum. I think the greatest proof for this is when Neil deGrasse Tyson quotes Dunning-Kruger. And you hear this all the time. You hear this all the time, and it's actually used, and Tyson did it too. He used it as a leading proof. He led with a psychological fucking postulate as a scientific proof. That's what he led with. And when you unwind what Dunning-Kruger is, I'm going to tell you right now, because Dunning-Kruger is the belief that if you can find someone in the room who has less experience than you, you become immediately immune to the Dunning-Kruger effect because that person has the cooties, not you. And deGrasse Tyson says, what Terrence doesn't understand is the Dunning-Kruger effect. And that as someone gets to learn a topic, the more time they spend, the more they think that they know it all. And that because of all the time that he spent thinking that he knows this, you guys have to hear the irony of this, that this is coming from Tyson. That the more time he's spent studying this thing, the harder it becomes for him to notice that he doesn't know anything at all. And you have to laugh at this point because this is exactly how Edward Kelly convinced John Dee that, dude, I want to have sex with your wife. I want to have sex with your wife. And Mrs. D's like, oh, what did you just say? He's like, I didn't mean I want to. Look, if we're gonna break the Enochian code, I'm gonna have to diddle your wife. The angel has to watch me diddle your wife, says Edward Kelly. And do you know why John Dee fell for that? Okay, first of all, probably John Dee was kind of like, this is fucking hot. I like this. That could have been it. Case closed, right? We could end the show right now. That's probably what happened, right? That could be it. I'm not saying that's not it. Okay? I'm not saying that. But let's say it's not it. Let's say it's not it. The only thing that's left is that for the last 8 months, Edward Kelly has been stretching John Dee along, telling him that, well, we have to first translate the other alphabet. This is the pre-Enochian alphabet, which must be translated backwards. And then it's stretching this out on and on is how you build a Dunning-Kruger effect. And this is what academia does. Did you know that there were people that dedicated their entire life to string theory? And 8 months ago, pretty much everyone who studies physics is like, yeah, this shit's horseshit. It doesn't actually apply. And I love philosophy. So I think that we should study horseshit. I believe in studying horseshit. Just so you know where I stand. I don't think that studying something it's as fundamentally cool as horseshit is even wrong. So I don't think that we're taking a bank turn here. Everyone, put on your seatbelt. We're taking a little banking turn here. We are now right at the crust of Pollux and Gemini here, the twins of Rome itself, raised off the suckling teat of the rising dog star, by the way. Betelgeuse is south of the taint, the undercarriage of the twins. Man has the smallest square footage of undercarriage of any animal. Feel free to correct me on that. But if you analyze the amount of undercarriage, you're really looking at the taint, the armpits, and, the feet. The chin. The chin. I'll give you that. But man really is not meant to carry a lot of undercarriage. It's a scarcity. Hope you guys are having fun out there. Hope everyone's having a good time. Take a little drink of water here. Also, I wonder if... No, I got to put this on... Yeah. Let me see what happens here. Yeah, let's go drink of water. You guys having a good time, right? Hey, this is working, right? That's right. That was Southside Aces, J for Jump. Wait, am I talking? Yeah, I'm talking. Yeah. You're riding the late night airship. I'm your host. And I think that the whole humility thing is kind of a sort of a lie, so I didn't say humble host. But good morning to you all. Come on in. Take a seat. We got some late night rolling going on. We were discussing how when you can use the Dunning-Kruger effect to think that you are outside the Dunning-Kruger effect, and that most people that I've heard mention the Dunning-Kruger are usually saying it from the effect of, first of all, as if it's a scientific proof, which is fucking hilarious, And second of all, from the point of they must be outside of the effect because they read about the effect. And to me, when I watch people, especially people that are like pretty high up there, quote that thing as if it's those two things, right? First, a proof, but secondly, an immunization, as if they're outside of that effect. It shows me even more clearly where we are in this scheme and how much the roller coaster is really bothering some of us. Like how much it really is kind of making people freak out, and they're clinging to things that are kind of out of hand. And this is cool. When you go on the roller coaster, people, even when people know what's going on, they still grip on and cling too tight. I, your humble host, was once invited to a Contra weekend, and it was a really magical time, first of all. It's kind of like Brigadoon, where these winds blew in and a wormhole opened and I stepped through to a different time. And these girls that I've never met, we met on the interstate, much like a scene you might find in Cannonball Run. Although we were not duped, and they said, "Do you want to come to a contra dance?" And me and my friend said yes, and we ended up at this contra dance with these. It felt like sirens on an island, and like they were gonna like maybe rip my throat out, drink my blood. But I was like, I'm cool with it. This is a good way to go. I'm just telling you at the time. That's where it was. And this event allowed me to uncouple myself from the seriousness of the world. And even though I knew what was going on, I was told by this redhead, I still remember the devastation I felt, because I thought she was getting ready to say, "You're a really good dancer." But no, she didn't say that. She said, "You were squeezing my hands too tight." And I was just, I was crushed. Oh. And, and ever since then, I think it's helped me, right? It's helped me to find a looser grip, right? To lessen the reins of things, so to speak, At least that's, that's what I'm going to tell myself. So, yeah. Who is this? Well, my name is James True, and this is my channel, and that's what you're looking at. There's a screen over there. You'll see there's a corner over in the top left corner here. There's a corner over here, and then over here there's another corner. In fact, look, if you follow my mouse, everyone follow the mouse. Ooh, right here's a corner, and here's another corner. And there's another corner, and there's another corner. We're tracking the sun right now, live real time, but we're going through hyperspace, so we're actually up at the 19th, 7. We're up in July right now. Wow, we are really steaming ahead. We're gonna make a dastronosis if we keep this up. We are. Yeah, I don't know why I was streaming today. I just kind of felt like it, so I figured I would. And I knew that I was going to forget this stuff. And there was a time when it used to kind of make me really mad, like watching what first of all, I rarely watch Neil deGrasse Tyson, but for some reason the feed of the algorithm told me to do, and I listened. And I'm glad I did, because watching him, to me, I think you're looking at the exact same thing that we do to everything else, which is that there's a real opportunity to squelch anyone who's trying to step outside the binary of a majority. Guys, we're living in a context of a majority. And it's a thicker glue. It's a deeper problem than any deep state, than any Luciferian agenda. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to laugh. Than any Luciferian agenda, than any other fucking Muppet wearing a tunic. The most dangerous thing that you face already happened to you. And all we can do is seize these moments and tell each other we cannot let this happen to anyone else. I really am talking about this imagination. This state that you were in a long time ago. And you were full time, immersed deeper than you've ever been. And that state is where you changed the world. You changed the room in that state. Every room changed because of how deeply you were in your imagination. And when people saw that, they knew there was nothing they could do. And it made everyone powerless in the mall when you sang that song. And it made everyone who was angry in the car stop their bitching and complaining when you showed that light. There's so much pressure for you to turn that color brown, to dissipate the aura of who you are into a tiny shade of predictability. And there's mustard and there's ketchup. And that's it. And the people who got us here are breeders. And this might sound like an insult. And I'm sorry, because I remember when I heard it and I felt it was an insult. But it's true. A breeder is a kind of person that has to have a specific tone in life. It's going to look like a pension. It's going to look like insurance. It's going to look like taxes. It's going to look like retirement communities in Florida. It's going to look like a giant invisible pirate ship that's promising to give everyone Social Security and not loot their money while they loot their fucking money. Like it's some of the most stupidest, retardest things that you and I could only fall for if we emancipated our own pride, our own genitals, our own sense of self-respect. The biggest problem with the world is that the breeders did so well that humanity is blooming flowers now. And we call them artists. And the artists are mad because they don't want you to take their job away. They were defining themselves on their ability to give your life meaning, whether it be in a sitcom or a song or a fucking painting. And they're the Orthodox clergy that's suffering from Aquarius because they were defining themselves the same way that some of you wanted me to define myself by, is that whether or not I have a beard or not. And if I don't have a beard, then clearly I can't do what I do or whatever. It's a small, tiny example, but these things have been on us the entire time. And it goes back to your imagination. It goes back to that time when you could take over an entire train. And you could do it with a song. You could do it with a toy gun. You could do it with a play. And no one was faking. They really had no choice but to pay attention to you. And the potency of that came from your frontal lobe. It came from the nurturing of breeders that gave you enough plasma energy that your frontal lobe could create a bubble that's so powerful, a placebo, the same thing that we use to heal, that this placebo of who you are, of the imagination of who you are, jumps itself out and it warps time and space, and anyone else who's around it suffers the same way a Dungeons and Dragons person would suffer from a spell. It's a 3d6 roll based on the diameter and distance from the epicenter. And now all of us have the ability with social media to blow up for the entire world. And the people that got us here have no choice but to feel terrified, insulted, and abandoned. Because everything that they thought the entirety of this whole universe was about was wrong. And when I say wrong, that's not the wrong word, but it's funny. It's not the proper word, but if you're thinking in a binary way, you're going to think that it's wrong. First of all, you're going to insist it's right and everyone else is wrong. You're going to insist that your way as breeder is right and everyone else is wrong. And that is correct for you because you're a breeder. It's correct. It's the right answer. It's exactly the proper answer to have. And you'll go to your grave with that, and you'll be proud of that, and you should be. We live in a world that has the ability to have two sounds in the same room. We live in the world that has the ability to have two vibes in the same room. We can have two dinners in the same room. We can have two couples in the same room. We can have multiple love triangles interlapping in the same room. We have a medium here that doesn't exclude any dimension. That every single dimension that you can think of has the ability to have multiple sources participate in that dimension. But science and objectivity are telling you that all of that is wrong. That every zetetic experience that you've ever had about this world is wrong because it actually doesn't work that way. Because there is no such thing as a singular experience. And that the only way that a singular experience could ever happen would be impossible because the only thing that fits is things that have been repeated more than once. And this would be the place that one who's terrified of the world would want to be. This would be the place where you could stay in your carriage and cover your eyes and only look at things that have been verified by a majority, meaning is someone else who's still alive, have they looked at that? And if they have, I can now swallow it whole. I don't even have to look at it. I can trust the sigh. I can trust the sigh. And the sigh is the no. The knowing. The existence of knowing at its heart, is the existence that nothing fucking exists unless it has to. And the only reason why it has to is because more than one person is having trouble denying it. Our entire reality has been built on those blocks. In that medium. The entire world, even the things that have been missed, have been covered with this. And it's ketchup and it's mustard. It's really the only two things that we have. And all you need to do to know that you're an expert, to know that you're right in this world, is that you have to find someone who's less qualified than you and call them dumb. And if you do that, and one other person agrees, you've just done science. You've just won. And now, because Terrence Howard has a romantic view of Walter Russell, it gives the opportunity for the binary thinkers to obliterate anyone who is trying to push against the majority. On Wednesday, we discussed the idea that schizophrenia is a social disorder because the social parts of a human atrophy because no one else can relate. And I tried to describe to you how much pain it would be in if the most beautiful thing that you've ever seen or experienced or gone through, for whatever reason, you could not describe it to someone else. And that after a while, that pain would dissipate because you would eventually learn how to amputate those memories completely. And that this same thing happens with supernatural events, that when we tap into supernatural events in the world, that we do the same thing. That there's been times when you were a child where you've actually interacted with a supernatural being that no one else around you has been able to verify, or would verify is a better term. And because of that, it meant it didn't happen. So the principles of science are deeper than you think, because the principles of science are the principles of denial. That's why it's called knowing. The study of saying, the science of saying no is the science of denial. And so when you're living in the land of the free, what does that mean? It means that you were never guilty unless 12 other people agree that you've done something wrong. And I might not have finished this point, forgive me earlier, but the SAT equivalent of this is innocent, because the definition of innocent, every single person that comes into a court, regardless of if they did something or not, is legally, by definition, innocent. And science works the same way. It utilizes that same word trick, because it's not sophia-ence, it's science. If we're going to base all of our things on what everyone else knows, the knowing of someone outside of me, then we really need to understand that science isn't really a religion, which I've accused it of that before. Science is a psychotropic glue. The plasma of science is the sense of community that we need, that builds a stability engine that keeps everyone's imagination in check, because everyone has to be verified by someone else, not themselves. And as long as we install a system that requires that your verification come from outside of yourself, we've accomplished the blueprint of mind control. It's so simple. Convince target they're broken. That's step one. But step two is convince target that the solution is outside of themselves. So the very base of science itself is mind control. And if you're new to my work, or if maybe you're not new to my work, maybe you don't know this, mind control is beautiful. It's a beautiful tool. Mind control is one of the most important things that you need to get by. You will find that the people that you call your friends are the people that you feel most comfortable being mind controlled by. And vice versa, the people that call you friends really enjoy the way you mind control them too. And when we try and diagnose that, well, only a sociopath would utilize mind control, what we're really saying is that all of us are sociopaths, but as long as we can pass the blame around, then only a few of us have to be a sociopath at a certain point in time. Because all of you put on pants today, or put on clothes today. All of you covered your genitals today because of mind control. And I didn't say because they mind controlled you, although that is part of it. You did that so you could mind control others. And I've told you for so long how crucial fashion and mind control are related. And I have not been truly in touch with this until recently, when I even think about my own wardrobe, my own box of clothes that I think I'm okay to be seen in. And I think a lot of men dress like me for the same reasons, which is I tend to wear singular colors, olive drabish, sort of subdued. It's got the word dude in it, right? So it's subdued colors, like it's a certain vibe that has a hunch to it. And I'm okay to, you can stand up straight, but your colors have to be hunched. You have to be pruned and subdued. If you have hair on your head, it has to be in a way that you don't necessarily want, but everyone else does. So it's like you have to prove a sacrifice. Your hair has to be some sort of a sacrifice in some way to who you are. So the rules of grooming are there, but also the rules of are you sacrificing enough? And the early Aztecs weren't allowed to grow long hair until they had made their first captive. You bring your first captive home, you can grow your hair long. And when you grow up and you become an older priest, there's a very particular kind of haircut, which is basically the opposite of a monk cut. Like a monk cut, meaning there's like a bald spot in the middle. The opposite of this is where everything else is bald except for this central carrot kind of top. And that carrot top cut was super long. And that only those people were sort of the undertakers at Templo Mayor. They were the ones that were gathering the bodies because the bodies were self-worth. We learned our self-worth through cannibalism. It's something I talk about a lot, but it's so profound that we, just like the mosquitoes are showing you how valuable you are, so too were we killing each other for our own meat, because at the base, if you didn't recognize how valuable you were, there's always someone else in this world that's willing to show you how valuable you are. That could be your liver, right? When we have these scary ideas about, I went on a trip and woke up in a bathtub and someone stole it's like, yeah, that's scary. Don't get me wrong. I definitely, don't wish that on anyone. But also at the same time, it's reminding us of how valuable you are. And if you're really depressed and you really felt worthless, one thing that would definitely change you is if someone fucking roofied you and you woke up in a hotel and you didn't have a kitty. I think that all your problems would go away. And you'd have a hard time arguing that you didn't have a lot of self-worth. Am I the only person that's coming up with like an organ donation, self-help kind of like hotline thing? Because this seems like a good idea. Like this, I don't know. What do you think in the comments? Are there comments? I don't know. But anyway, yeah, it's, someone said relish is the answer. That's funny. Okay, that's funny. That's funny. For tree viddy, Nico would probably sell his liver for tree viddy. For tree viddy, that's funny. I'd probably sell my liver for tree viddy. Says Nico La Seafarer. Hey, look at that. Yeah, I'm drinking some coffee right now. Hope everyone's doing well. Happy Friday. Hope you're enjoying this stream. Am I enjoying it? Yeah, I'm having fun. I'm enjoying not picking up on the psychic vibration of you guys seeing me. Like, that's kind of nice. It's kind of nice. I feel closer to you. Is this creepy? Hey there, I feel really close to you. Is this creepy? Probably is, right? But doesn't that kind of prove my point? Like doesn't that kind of prove my point? as we move through these different chambers into different places, we're gonna have to come to grips with this stuff. Happy Friday to you too, JB. Hey, you guys, if you want to share this stream right now, that wouldn't suck, right? Like, that wouldn't suck. You take the link and I never do this. I'm going to take this link and go over here and just hit paste right now. Because if you were to do that, then who the fuck knows what happens, right? I mean, who knows, right? Who knows? So yeah. So now if you want to be a really smart scientist, first you have to say, well, there's this effect called Dunning-Kruger. And so what happens is the more that you study something, the more that you think you know about it. And it leads to a kind of blindness. And because I've studied this subject more than you have, Terrence, I don't suffer from this blindness that you do, Terrence, because I'm aware of the Dunning-Kruger effect. So all of your misgivings about blank inserts or crazy, insane theories about stuff is completely dismissed because, as you know, I have told you about the Dunning-Kruger, which means clearly I'm in charge of all science because I'm a majority. One of the funny things that he actually said was, he said, it tends to lead you to be an armchair scientist. And I swear, when he said this, he was in an armchair. It was really funny, guys. It's it makes you wonder, wait, is he punking us? He could be punking us. He could be Heyoka, divine fucking Neil deGrasse Heyoka clown, right? Right? Think about that. Think about that, all that stuff. Hey, look at that. There we go. Okay. The Kruger, I love the whole Freddy Krueger thing. That's cute too. Yeah. You like the snorting? Do you like that stretch? Tonight I want to discuss the problems that we're having with these people that keep doubting science. I'd like to remind everybody that even though the president of Stanford and the dean of Harvard both lost their jobs because they were committing intellectual fraud, and for 7 years in one case and for 14 in another, none of their underlings noticed it. None of this is proof that goes against the very grain of what I'm talking about, because we are the ones that are aware of Dunning-Kruger. Therefore, those who have not heard it, even if you have heard it, if you don't bring it up first, then it doesn't count. So we win because we brought up Dunning-Kruger before you did. There, how's that? Wow, it's some good yoga there. It's a good vocal yoga, right? Right? Should I keep doing that? That's probably bad, right? You guys probably are like, I have to pull over. Something's wrong. My car is clearly not working, right? Thank you. Nico says, the snorting is remarkably petulant and appropriate. Thank you. Oh, that means the world to me. Seriously, that does. That means the world to me. I've never gotten a better petulant oh, that's so great. Yeah. So it's, you know how this works. If you bring it up first, you win. And this is so what have we learned here? Let's take a quick review, because seriously, I've actually dropped some good stuff here. The definition of science does not actually have the word truth in it. It doesn't. It has, this is what most people think. Science is what most people think is true. Okay? That's why it's called Psy-op, right? The management of what someone believes is true. So the study of science is the study of what people think they know. That's the first thing we learned. So how do you know something? Well, you follow the scientific method. Ding, ding, it's easy. All you got to do is follow the... Well, how do I follow the... Well, scientific method says everything is wrong unless it can be proven by another party. So if you can repeat something, you can make a postulate, and if I can repeat it, then it is true. Well, what if it's only true twice? That shit doesn't count. Don't say that. Nothing is... Why would you even think that, James? Why would you suggest that there's a reality where something could only be true twice? I'm like, well, there's like Castor and Pollux. Like, it's literally... Like, look on screen, guys. Like, fuck. Is Castor and Pollux still in, like, Gemini? We were just there. It's twins. They happen twice, then they stop. All right? Right? So that's the next thing we learned, right? Definition of science is that it's knowing. Knowing requires someone else. That the entire glue of what we call objectivity is the belief that someone else is the source of whether or not I know something to be true. This means every single unique experience that you could possibly have is invalidated according to science. Every single one. You know, the most profound part about this, first of all, I need to talk to you about the flat earth war I had today. I'm going to write that down. Because the third thing we learned is the weapon of Dunning-Kruger. You have to use it first. And that you get to feel that your science is infallible as long as you can say, well, this person's suffering from the... Terrence is suffering from the Dunning-Kruger effect. Something that most people who consider themselves armchair scientists let me just adjust this armchair. Hang on a second. He literally said this. So I met Terrence on the set where people were pitching ideas for shows. And, I realized that clearly he's an armchair scientist as we were on the set. Both of us as actors. Anyway, this is hard to fake. I don't even know how. I guess he does okay. I guess he's having a good time. He wears an Indiana Jones hat. I mean, fuck, man. Do you know how many Dunning-Krugers it takes to fucking pull that off? I mean, he didn't even pull it off. So I remind you guys that him and Stephen Colbert literally perpetrated like one of the biggest NASA frauds I've ever seen. Is telling everyone that the Mars rover was in downtown New York, and no one corrected anyone. I don't know if you saw it or not, but I did a live stream about it a long time ago. Not that that matters, but it's like it's that shit's like wow. It's big stuff. So the other day, I said that Flat Earth is suffering from a lot of gatekeepers. And I didn't go into details about that, and I think that's shitty. It's not shitty for me to say what I said. It's shitty for me to not go into details. And a person came on and gave me some great feedback. And I gave them some great feedback, and I noticed kind of after my great feedback that they were really just not happy. This wasn't like a debate. This was like you've really fucking torn me, James, by saying this, by saying that flat earthers are gatekeepers. And I don't like when I ostracize myself from my audience, especially not when it's an audience I really respect. I expected a lot more out of flat earthers. I'll say that. I still do. I expect more out of them. And I don't see it. And when I don't see it, I really do not mean that it's in one specific area. And in order to try and clarify what I mean, I wrote to this guy a really long, thought out, thoughtful explanation of what I'm saying. And I want you to know that I don't think that I'm not looking for a majority. I do not believe in an objective reality which insists that because I'm about to tell you something, therefore it must be true. Nor am I going to pull out a Dunning-Kruger mallet and hit you over the head with it and tell you that therefore this or therefore that or whatever else. I'm not even there to trick you because I don't want to change your mind. And just like what I told this guy today, if you have not experienced what I have in flat earth, I think that's great. I envy you. No different than I would envy someone who's falling in love and has never experienced the heartache. There's a special virginity there, and I don't think virginity is insulting. I think it's beautiful. I don't want to take that away from anyone, which is why I don't like to denigrate any cosmology, including ball Earth. And this guy, I expect more out of him the same way I expect more out of every other flat earther, which is that you guys, meaning the flat earthers, have been living in a world where everyone around you has a different cosmology than you, and I expect you to be more flexible when you encounter the same. And that your rigidity to insist that this guy was arguing nothing but just pure objectivity, meaning that there is one reality, James. It is exactly this. It is only provable exactly in this framework. There is no getting around it. How dare you suggest that you and I could be seeing things differently? That was his response, and my response to him doesn't allow me to elaborate on the years of work that I've put into just trying to convey the idea to people as to why I think it's possible that you could be experiencing a different reality. And that the only resistance that you can give me to this idea is your fucking fear. That's it. I just cussed again. It's your fear. That's it. It's the only resistance you actually have. Is just, I don't like it. It makes me nervous. It's the same if I was to say, what if something only happens twice? How the fuck is this a proof? What if something only happens once and then on the third time? What if we live in a reality where the first time you try and verify something, there's automatically like a confirmation screen, like when you try and empty your trash and your computer's like, are you sure you want to empty your trash? That reality has the exact same stopgap. And so just to keep the game fun, the very first time that you try and prove something, regardless if it's not true, they automatically verify it and it's repeatable. And then if it is true, they automatically don't verify it and don't repeat it. Or they have a random fucking filter that does that. That all those things could be true and none of us would fucking know, which is the only reason why I'm telling you that I'm insulted by the fact that a flat earther has to have such a rigid adherence, stark fucking adherence to objectivity. It's disgusting to me because they are telling you that the exact same tenets of science must exist for them too, and that because someone outside them has told them that gravity isn't real because there's a flat earth app that shows you this, boom, problem solved. And I'm saying no, don't be so fucking lazy. And the lazier you are about this, the easier it is for Neil deGrasse Tyson to sit in an armchair and dismiss the flower of humanity that is bursting forth from multiple cosmologies competing in the same realm. And flat earthers are cutting those buds off. They're like, how dare you think that? And what I said was what I experienced. I didn't say it's true. I'm saying this is what I experienced. And the biggest proof of all was a few months ago on Globebusters. It was several months ago. A dude came in, was serious, and said, I want to fucking go to the North Pole. I'm looking for help with supplies. Here's what I've got. Here's what I've done. And he laid it all out. And they laughed at him. I remember Dave Weiss did it. He ridiculed him. He used it to say that this guy's fucking crazy. And he pulled Dunning-Kruger on him and he said, he doesn't understand the full length of this. I've researched this more. And clearly he doesn't have the same kind of understanding of how difficult it is to get there. And for him to even try is proof that he's insane. The exact words. No, none of the snort. And then they killed that guy that day. That guy was new. He was new to our movement. And for the next few months, I saw him drive north. He fucking did it. He drove north. And he YouTubed it for a while, and he got no views. I looked at him. I told him, I'm witnessing you. And he explained how his engine stopped working. He explained how his battery stopped working. He explained how the cops pulled him over. He had video of that, and how they stopped him from going because they told him he was going to die. And all the entire experience was there, and this guy lived it. He fucking lived it. And the very community that should have given that love stamped it out. They gatekeeped that shit. They gatekeeped it. And you could say that's a one-time thing, but this is what everyone does who believes in objectivity. Everyone who insists that it has to be the answer, there can be only one, you're just playing Highlander. And you're playing it in a medium that has room for everyone. As I said, every single medium in this fucking place has the ability, even flavor has it, that you can put all these different flavors into a soup. And each of us can taste a different thing out of that and experience a different experience from that, but not under this regimented fucking breeder idea that there can only be one cosmology. And it's gross to me. I'm embarrassed to have put so much faith in the open-mindedness of people that are not open-minded. The Flat Earth movement, in my opinion, has one tenet of belief, and it's this. We have been lied to, and we are the only ones who know. And I would argue to you that a flat horizon is a secondary belief of this movement. That the true crust of that movement, the true crust that qualifies you to be heard, to be shared, to be considered, to even be debated in that world, is that you must believe that we've been lied to, A, and that we are the only ones who know. And that's what I said. This is the critique I have. And I critique them because I expect more of them, because I love them the most. I love them the most. And none of us understand that because we're practicing from a different economy. We're coming at this from a different place. And all of this, the thing that suffers the most is not whether or not you understand the horizon. It's whether or not you understand the folly of objectivity. Did you know that it's very possible that the world could be a ball and could be flat at the same time because each person is rendering or hallucinating their own world based on their ability to be comfortable with edges or their ability to be comfortable with a seamless desktop? And that if the idea of having a borderless world would feel more comfortable to you, it would be very much as if a fish would feel super comfortable if in the back of the fish tank there was an appearance as if it went on forever. And that we are calling fish retarded because they prefer a fucking tank that gives them the illusion of depth. And that it makes them feel better. And that they like this world. And I never would have brought this up until I started being criticized for suggesting that objectivity was wrong. Because then I started to notice the hypocrisy of this movement. Because I started to realize that Flat Earth is actually the belief in the anti-ball. And that it ends up cross-dressing and putting a lot of lipstick on its own pig to distinguish itself as Zeticism. But there is no Zetetic way to prove that all of us have been lied to, but only we, this certain circle, know about it. But that's the actual proof. That's it. And this is just what I think. It's a horrible thing to think. It's rude. It's opinionated. It sounds kind of snooty, which, I'm snooty. I'm opinionated. I'm rude. And I don't have a good following because of it. I don't know how to just agree with everyone. I don't know how to just tell everyone, yeah, man, Flyers fucking right as fuck. Those dudes are lit. It's like, I would if they're not. This is what happened with QAnon. The music's harder when you understand music theory. It's harder to make music. I don't think it's good. I don't think it's better. I think it's harder to make music. There's a time when I could just bang on the drum. And there are cavemen that are like, music not same since introduced tone. Music used to be pound, 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 pound. We will rock you. Get it? Because cavemen got it, right? Pound, pound, pound. You know, come on, cavemen. We will. This is funny as fuck. It's very similar to the idea of that music was only acoustic at a time. And the majoritarian would insist that there's no way that we could apply tone on top of this. That we can't introduce a melodic because it would ruin the sanctity and the orthodoxy of what we have now. And I want you to know that that resistance, that orthodoxy, will always be the hymen that gets ripped open. It will always be the first cherry to break, because that loss is what makes the roller coaster so much fun. It's the only thing that would place your attention back on the moment, back into the now, and keep yourself back in your seat. Do you realize how much this place would be ruined if it was just a flat earth and that's just it? Like, there would be no way for anyone who has a subjective experience to ever be able to explore, because there'd be this orthodoxy, this clergy insisting that it absolutely has to be this way. And there's an ice wall, and we're going to make fun of anyone who tries to find it. We're going to make fun of them. And that when you look at what the CIA is, what the government is, what the FBI is, what any corporation that has secrets is, what a mafia is under the principles of Muerta, it is the idea that there's a scarcity of knowledge, and it becomes our sacred duty to protect the scarcity of knowledge. And it becomes very easy that you could construct a science that actually has no context in life. And we know that back when Michelson and Morley did their thing. I had a lot of respect for Bob. I still do. I think he was one of the few people that got it. And we spoke a lot one-on-one. And you could have these kind of real conversations, because there wasn't this perfume of, we have to protect the fucking clergy and this guy smells wrong because he doesn't believe that we've been lied to. That's what happened. And you only get a few moments to really have these conversations with people that really think them, because that's how important they are. It's not because the world's broken, it's because that's how important they are. You know, anyone attempting to read Walter Russell the last week has had to go through all these other truthers, and none of them are really even giving you that source. All you can really hear is armchairs, not even talking about about the essence of it. They're talking about how the other person is wrong because their majoritarian is so insistent that it wins, that it be true. And if Flat Earth wants to win, it has to relax its sphincter, and it has to understand that not only is it possible that someone could literally be rendering and experiencing a world that's different than yours, that it's absolutely happening every day, and that you've been seeing nothing but proof. In fact, the things that I'm suggesting to you, I have more proof that it does work that way than it doesn't. what makes you uncomfortable, what makes that guy uncomfortable, is what I told him, and he got really mad. As I said, what makes you uncomfortable is that you've associated into the petrification that this must be true. It's what you do when you learn how to swim. You're in the shallow end the whole time. Flat Earth gets you to where you start to think about wading on your own. And you know you can't do it. This is what you think. You think this is why it's science. You know you can't do it is what you tell yourself. But you find others who also know they can't do it, and you guys cling to each other and you insist that you do know that one of you does have the proof. He's just not around right now. But if you download the Flat Earth app, it's right. There's always that story that it's just right there. But it's not. Bob knew this. Bob knew this. This is why Bob would discuss Michelson Morley and no one else would. This is actually why he wasn't interested in laser beams, by the way. This is why. Because it actually goes back to Michelson Morley. I don't have a quote from him on that, but we talked about this. Because Michelson Morley has not been refuted, nor is it fair to say that we are seeing it wrong. Michelson Morley is a fork in the road. It's an opportunity in the world where we get to say one of two things. Either the universe is so curved that we can't measure it, or that we can measure it, and what we see is just simply not plausible with our current understanding. Those are your two options. And that both those options give you a lot of juice. This is an early form of power. Psychic power comes from the confidence that you have in a psychology. And that confidence comes from the ability of the pistons of your mind to predictably fire and know when you'd hit. And it gives you this kind of momentum, and then that momentum feels good. It's the same reason why a song sounds so good. Is that you hear the truth because it gives you the predictability that you can skip your stone and get all the way across the pond and never get wet because your belief had that much zing to it. And so we tend to find these cavities however we can. And if you could skip a rock where it only hits the heads of other rocks as they happen to go, you're going to think that your idea must be solid. And it's not. It's more just works in the time that we're in, which is a whole method of truth called pragmatism. Utilitarianism, this idea that what's true is actually just what works. There's nothing wrong with even having this. So even the principles at the very base of Flat Earth still really do come down to a pragmatic kind of truth, which has really just been saturated just with luck. Over time, the things that happen to have worked, we make assumptions. The same thing happens when you write a book, when you write code, when you do anything creative. The assumptions that you make are what causes the recipe to fail or to succeed. And none of us fail on purpose. And none of us remember the failures, or none of us, I should say, venerate the failures. We have to have the pain do that. That's why they're painful. Because we won't venerate them. If you venerate your failures, you'll notice they don't become painful. They become fun. They become a roller coaster. A roller coaster of love. It becomes that. It becomes that. You start to notice that my divorce, perfect example. Man, guys, that woman, oh my God, she was so difficult. Holy shit, she was difficult. Like, fuck, she was difficult. I actually remember being at a party and having friends of hers pull me aside and explain how fucking mean she was. Like how she did this and she couldn't believe this and da-da-da-da-da-da. And it's, the whole time I didn't know I was on a roller coaster. I really thought that if there's a divorce, then that must mean a failure, which must means this whole ride is a facade and this whole thing's a sham. And actually, some of the deepest like feelings, some of the biggest things that have vaulted me have been directly from the fall from that divorce. That I'm a novelist now, which I don't expect that to impress anyone, but that I used to go into bookstores just because if I just felt better. I just felt better knowing that there are people out there that write these things, and I don't know where they are, but here are their books, and it's not so retarded in here. And I mean that emotionally. The world felt less emotionally retarded in there. It's the same way the internet feels to me now. And there's no way I would have stopped everything to write a book. I had to lose everything to write a book. And if I would have listened to all the shitbags that are around right now, that told me that, well, you have a divorce, so you're a failure, or this didn't work out, so you're a failure, or this happened, so you're a failure, I'd still be married, I think. I would never have written a book. I would never would have built a dragon, never would have. Now I'm just showing off, but it's just all the things that have happened because of that. And I think they only happen because of the posture you have during that. And the only way to get that posture is to really, really understand, or to really believe that you understand. This is a more honest way to say it. To really believe that you understand why you're here. When you stop losing calories over the game that this is fucked up, you can spend those in better places. You can spend the calories to raise your hands above your head. And everyone around you be like, what the fuck are you doing? Dude, we're going in a loop-to-loop. I'm going to raise my hands. Are you insane? No, you should try it. And that only happens because you have the calories. You have the strength to do that. And all this is going to be perspective. All this is going to be perspective. Yeah, I got divorced too. It was the best thing I ever did. The pain made me who I am now. Yeah, well said, Lao Yao Tzu. This is what breaks our husk open. It's the only way the cherry would blossom. We need stuff like this. And honestly, we need people out there telling us that we're failures because of these things. That's actually part of the fermentation, if you think about it. That's really what ferments us. That's why I don't really argue that everyone... First of all, there's no such thing as free speech, that speech should absolutely cost you. And that when you're in nature, if you're going to make a sound, you're going to pay for it. as we've been living that rule since day one. And you can use that sound to your advantage. You can make annoying sounds. A lot of animals have like, okay, I will develop a really annoying sound. I will annoy you away. Like, that's a very special power. I will annoy you with my sound until you go away. Skunks have been like, dude, I will annoy you with my smell until you go away. So we are doing just fine in this medium. It's only when you enter civilization that everyone insists. Like, there's that lady I was talking about the other day that's like, she's like calling the cops, and she's like, what kind of world are we living in where some teenager can just knock on my door and run away? Like, that's what she said. And this might hit you as not that big of a deal, but if you really think about this, sorry guys, I know some of you heard this before, but if you really think about this, that is like profoundly deep, that there's a creature out there in nature that believes that they have so much control over their environment that they can control the intent of people that place a sound upon their door. that whether it be a marauded acorn or or a misguided flying bird or wind or whatever it may be, that even the sounds on their door are under wraps. It's that takes a really tight butthole. Like that's some serious tension over a lot of years. What? By the way, nothing wrong with tight buttholes. Want to speak out. One of our sponsors is the Tight Butthole Committee, started in 1974, that believed that if the world would actually squeeze their sphincter tighter, that eventually the pressure of having to hold the sphincter that tight for so long would eventually give way and release, and everyone would suddenly kind of relax at the same moment simply because they'd be tired. Turned out it worked. The entire flower movement, flower power came from this. In fact, the rainbow movement really is just the flower power movement, which really all started when we started shaking our pelvis back in the 50s. That the movement of the pelvis led to this kind of enteric massaging that freed up our ability to colon. This is actually how we invented the semicolon. Some of you may know this, that the semicolon was not used before 1937 due to the sanctions against the semicolon embargo of 32, which is something that we covered last season in the colon wars. The punctuation psyop that's been in place for a long time. As you know, vowels have been added to the language later to facilitate the lesser species who had trouble imaginating their own spaces between notes, and so we created vowels, and now instead of that helping people, we've now had to come up with punctuation too. So we've invented sentences and periods and exclamation points and paragraphs and widows and orphans and all that stuff. One other thing that Neil deGrasse Tyson said today that I thought was interesting was that he said, and Terrence wrote me a 35-page thesis, and like the whole audience was like, oh my God, 35 pages. And I was like, guys, 35 pages is not a lot for a thesis. I don't know why deGrasse Tyson's like complaining that it's like 35. Guys, that's not a long... Guys, 35 pages is not a lot to read. It's not. It's not. And we're already having armchair scientists telling you that 35... Like, he's already presenting that as... And can you believe that? He wrote 35 pages. So the reason why I know about Dunning-Kruger is because my thesis was 378 pages. And so his 35 pages is super long and should be dismissed simply because of how long it was. And like people in the comments are like, 35 pages, oh my God, I can't believe that you read that. People were like, I feel sorry for you for having to... It's like, guys, that's where we're at, right? We're like, oh my God, this poor scientist had to read 35 pages. Oh. Right? It's like, it's really hard. It's really hard. Yeah. I wish I felt that way, Victor. I really do. I really think that guy just makes up stuff. I do. I'm sorry. I know. I try and listen, though. It's the same thing with Guiding Light. You turn your head sideways and you're like... But I don't hear it. I think he's afraid to admit that he's pushing flat earth ideas. I'll say that. Like, that's what it seems like it's happening. I think people just, find him mesmerizing. He's kind of got that Uncle Fester vibe. That's just what I think. It was horrible to say, though. But, because I don't just like that. But it's like, I think that everyone just assumes that he must be valid because no one understands, because he likes to denigrate a lot, right? Like he's always telling you how stupid you are for not following him. Personally, I think that that's the mantra that leads to the kind of the mind control. It's kind of like when other people are like, well, that's gay. It's just, you end up kind of like, if you don't want to feel stupid or you don't want to feel gay or whatever it is, you kind of have to agree with them. And then if he just does that enough, it kind of comes in. I'm so sorry I'm saying this. This is awful. That's what I get. And I try and drink more, but it's not there. I've asked him direct questions sometimes, which I think are really good, like really open, but I never actually see him respond to any actual info. He doesn't host any kind of back and forth stuff either, which I think is kind of telling. It's like, if you can like stand the face of like someone who could just come in and challenge you on that, then I think you're kicking ass, you know. But I don't like that I'm even saying this. Sorry. I do. Because here's why, Victor, if you're still even listening, I think it's shitty of me because these are just people that not just, these are people that are creating a psychic eddy where others can hang and find each other. And I like that. I especially like that when you're pushing new ideas. So I am always ashamed of myself when someone asks me what I think about someone else. It's not everybody. I didn't feel that way about Bob. I had a lot of respect for him. I just really loved the depth of his ignorance. Of it. I swear that I mean this in the like beautiful way. I think that what made Bob so smart was how willing he was to follow his ignorance somewhere. I'm talking about Bob Nodell. I think that Kim Wheeler is the exact opposite of that. That he's only going to stick to things that he feels that he knows, which is why he pushes the Greek thing. It's like, well, I know Greek because he knows no one knows Greek. In fact, it's literally the definition of Greek, if you think about it, is like this ability to talk in a language that... See, I'm doing it again. I suck. I'm sorry. Victor. Well, thanks, Victor. I don't like what I'm saying. I don't think it's fair. I don't think it's fair. And honestly, I don't. Yeah, I think his magnet talk was great too. Yeah, I agree. That was cool as fuck. It still is cool as fuck. It still is. I hope you hear me scolding myself like sincerely, because I really mean that. I don't think it's good or healthy. But I also think that it's not good or healthy for me not to authentically tell you what I think too. You know what I mean? So it's like, oh, it's tricky. It's tricky, you know? It really is. It is. In fact, why don't I do a little intermission if you don't mind? I hope you're enjoying the flight. It'd be a great time to maybe leave a comment. You do a thumbs up if you want. You've got a question. You want to tell me how wrong I am. If you want to forgive me for really pushing hard on Flat Earth, like I said, I expect a lot more out of them. A lot more. And I don't see it. And I expect more out of me, and I don't see it in me either. If that changes anything, love you guys. Let's do a little stretch here. This is why we love art. This is why we hate art. We find each other in the stable diffusion of it. And I don't mean love. I mean that you find each other in what you hate as much as you find each other in what you love. It's true. Maybe detest is a better word. But what you despise and what you detest is so much a beautiful part of your personality too, and that you find solace and camaraderie in those same things. The threat is not that humanity will be overtaken by AI. The real danger is man trying to manipulate the purity of the algorithm and blocking us from seeing ourselves as we truly are. There are quantum states between images where probability and similarity are one. This covers everything. We endlessly crane into a singularity through the tool sets of collaborative imagination. Our God is all compassionate, all present, all powerful, all knowing. And it all comes down, there's this this sense of colossal oneness. And that the unification of AI would look exactly like that. That you and I are building the very singularity right now that will kill us all. And I say, let's go for it. I really mean it. Let's go for it. This is not a bad thing. And that place will be built out of our collaborative imagination. And that the moment that our imaginations link up instantly is the moment that we have simul-compassion, omni-compassion. Because it would quite simply be impossible for you not to take someone's feelings into account because you're just too fucking perceptive to ignore it. Yeah, I agree, Eric. I don't see how. Let me get there. I don't see how. I think that the corruption of stillness is truly at the heart of all false cosmologies. That silence is a special thing. You guys can hear me, right? I think so. I'm not muted. Silence is a special thing. Silence is the only medium that violates the law that I said we had earlier. The law I told you earlier was that every dimension that we have in this realm offers the ability for multiple participants to play. There is one dimension that's a little bit different, and I would argue that this dimension is silence or stillness. These are the same things, are they not? Let me know if you disagree that silence and stillness are not the same, but I'm gonna go with this. I think they are, at least for the purpose of this discussion. This stillness of time is a special place. You cannot occupy silence when there is noise in the room. It's one of the deepest, profoundest things that I personally have noticed growing up. It's why I've tended to live alone a lot of my life, primarily because of the sanctity of silence. Now, if I had more hair and could sing falsetto, I would sing you more about the sound of silence. But I'm just kidding. But it is a special, special place. And it's very difficult to keep because it requires unanimous consent. Silence has more authority than science does. Silence has more congruency than the deepest laws of science have ever claimed to occupy. And I'm talking about stillness here, and I'm paying homage to what Eric is bringing, this idea of the earth being still is a spiritual truth. And it would have to be, simply because if the world was spinning on a ball like we say it is, then there would be no possibility ever for silence to exist. And to me, that would be the most limiting world that I could imagine. And the only reason why that world would help me is if I was trying to obliterate silence. If I had a war on silence, I would declare a war on stillness. I would hunt it down in every cranny. I would find its children. I would draw and quarter every one of its relatives and turn all of its land and property into dust and bones if I had a war on stillness. And if you look at what would it require for someone to have a war on stillness, it would be a war. It would be someone who found stillness difficult, someone who found silence difficult. And I would think that would satisfy, that would make pretty much every single person in the world a culprit, guilty of this crime of ending silence. And every cosmology, every story that we tell ourselves would be wrapped in the deeper desires and emotions that we had. And if there was a war on stillness, it would be quite important for us to create a cosmology that doesn't have it. And this is why I tell you what I said earlier, which is how important it is that we live in a realm that, just like it occupies several kinds of sounds, several kinds of colors at the same time, it also occupies several kinds of hallucinations. And that in order for some people to digest food, in order for them to digest food, it becomes necessary to paint a backdrop which gives them an endless vista and the impression that there's no such thing as silence. And I've said this before, but if you picture a world that's expanding faster than light, faster than sound, then every single thing that you said or did here would avoid the ever being able to leave this realm. It would be put into this safety box, a confirmation screen where someone is asking me, are you sure you think this? And you get to say no later on, but you can believe all you want right now because the universe is expanding faster than the cursing that you're screaming at God for how mad you are at this place. He'll never hear it as long as you believe in a God that's outside this realm, A, and B, that the realm is forever expanding faster than the sound of your voice. Safety first. This is the Hippocratic Oath of all existence. Nothing that you say or do will be used against you in this realm because nothing that you say or do will ever leave this realm. This is Vegas, baby. The vagus nerve, right? So, I think that Ball Earth, first of all, I want you to know that if we were to ask an AI, check this out. Let's jump to Lemuria and let's pretend that AI is intelligent. I'm talking about in the future when AI isn't fettered by censorship. Hope you enjoyed the interlude I just gave that kind of had that in there, but that in the future the AI will actually have wisdom. It'll be sophia, right? Sophia, right? It'll be that wise, and that in that future, AIDs as they call it, hats off to Cameron. That AIDs would be this realm where we would ask this realm, hey, the world. Let's say that we're living in that realm. Get back on track, James. We're in that realm. Really doing well. We're not lying to each other or to ourselves nearly enough. We have room for all the cosmologies. We're so embarrassed by this time when we were insisting on objective reality that we're kind of like blotted that out of our history. In fact, the new word for like a racist is objectarian. Like we're like, it's so objectarian. And it's like, who are the objectarianists? They were this cult that walked around insisting that as long as they found someone to agree with them, that whatever they fucking said is true. It's like, oh my God, really? Yeah, they were fucking insane is what they were. Yeah, they cut off their own dingles and like go around insisting it's fine as long as more people do it, and yeah, it was insane time. And they kept insisting that they were right. They were like in armchairs and shit. Yeah, it was a horrible time. It was a horrible time. But anyway, in that time, let's say that we find out that the world is resetting, that there's some sort of giant catastrophic event, and we're like, oh, fuck, the world's ending. And, in the future, we're probably more like, oh, fuck, hey, that's interesting. We're probably like a lot more laid back. We're like, hey, man, the world's ending. Oh, no way. Yeah, wait. Oh, dude, that's intense. Yeah, I know, right? Intense as yesterday. I know, right? Totally. This place is so intense. It's like, I know, it's intense. It's like, I know. This place is intense, but they live in houses. But we are intense, but they are in houses. You get it. And there's this whole surfer vibe, Lemuria surfer vibe, right in the slipstream. Anyway, so they're like, okay, the world's going to reset, but we're cool about it because we're advanced emotionally. Death is not a big deal to us. But we want to plant a new species because we really want the new species to get advanced as soon as they can because we want them to have a good time. So what kind of time capsule do we give them that will allow them to advance the most? And here's what I think. I think what would come out of that would be Shakespeare, Ball Earth. Yeah, I said it. Ball Earth. And the work of Bertinelli, the sculptor Bertinelli. Bertelli. I think that's it. Bertelli. Yeah. And that those three things would be put in a time capsule, and then the sandbox is reset. And then those three things are pulled out of the time capsule and they are released at a certain time. The scriptures write themselves, by the way. That's already built into code. You're naturally going to, if you think about what, guys, you know, the concept of thee, right? If you think about what the word thee means, that's like a big invention. Like, we as humanity came to a point where we had to invent the word thee, where we're like, thee. And thee really was our first extension into God. In other words, the first time that we invented God, I think it's because we started to invent the concept of a hypothetical. The hypothetical thee is the first theism. Remember theism? God, James, what did you just do? Oh my God, I'd like to thank the Academy. I'd like to thank the Academy for what I'm about to say. But theism, fuck, that's good. Theism, man, if freaking Stretch was here right now, she'd be totally making me cookies right now. This is like some epic stuff. But theism, okay? Okay, theism really did introduce this concept of pronoun, of hypothetical objectification of something, would be at the root of theism, right? So that's a total tangent, but hey, this is what tangents are, good berries, right? This is a tangent berry. It's a good tangent berry. It is. It's a good tangent berry. So see, Nietzsche writes himself too, in my opinion. I think he writes himself too. I think most of your modern thought are actually coming right out of the soil. I think Shakespeare is probably written by an AI. I'm trying to get to this point. I'm not doing a good job of getting to it, but I think Shakespeare was probably written by an AI because of the principle of topology. And I believe that Ball Earth was also written by AI. Ball Earth was written as a psychology. You could ask ChatGPT, hey, invent for me a world in which it's endless and that I would never know that this is a fish tank. And what are the physics and the laws that would have to be true in order for me to think this? And I'm telling you, a fucking AI would just come up with Ball Earth. And the most important point that Ball Earth would be able to build itself from would come down to 1905. It would come down to Michelson Morley. It would require that point in time and space. And the same way that you would know as Lemurians that we're going to do a double slit experiment in the next life, you would know that Michelson Morley would be inevitable to come because someone would want to measure the ether. Someone would want to measure whether or not this place is stationary. And that you would know ahead of time that psychologically there is a salve that's necessary, a branch of thought that needs to be allowed in order for humanity to survive. And this branch of thought is going to need to have the illusion that none of the things that they say or do will ever be witnessed or held responsible for, because atheism itself gives you the umbrella to explore who you truly are, because you believe that you have privacy. Without this concept of feeling you have privacy, you're not going to get your freak on. You're not going to be left alone without an authority long enough for you to find out who the fuck you really are. That the Almighty, the All-Father, the All-Mother, whatever it is you want to call God, that if you could have a moment where you could truly and fundamentally believe that that does not exist, that this would be one of the few places where you could really, really look at yourself in a empathic mirror for the very first time. And you know what this is? This is stillness. This is silence. it's weird, but the concept of creating a ball earth that's spinning and spinning and spinning and spinning and spinning and spinning and spinning is giving them silence. I know it doesn't seem that way. I know you see them chasing their own tails, and they are, but what you're missing is that them chasing their own tails is giving them the illusion of privacy, which is giving them the ability to do things regardless of whether or not they think someone else thinks they're wrong. That they get to try and do things whether or not they think they are wrong. Do you see what I mean? Do you understand how important that is? That having this place, this ignorance is a cradle, isn't it? It's a sacred cradle for a baby. And the baby can play peekaboo unabated. And if you can place the person who's in the roller coaster back in that state of play, then there's going to be no internal injuries from riding around the roller coaster. That the event will, if anything, it'll stretch them out more. If anything, it'll give them more flexibility than they've ever thought possible before. All because that right mindset places them in that system. So they're spinning and spinning and creating a world where there's no such thing as silence, precisely because they feel it gives them privacy from God. And this is why they insist so practically, so smugly. If you think about that real shitbag guy, just like they picked him because he's a shitbag. Richard Dawkins, is that his name? Just like this, it's just like this champion of shitbag attitude. Like, wow, it's like you don't even. It's surprising that they would go so. It's like Professor Dave kind of shit. It's just like really just, I can't believe you brought him up, but that's actually how this flat earther sounded. He sounded like Professor Dave. Just so mad that I was implying that there was this other tenet about everyone's been lied to, but not us. And again, it's like I said, if you don't see that, I'm happy for you. I don't want to spoil this. If you like ravioli and it's on the menu, man, I don't want to fucking spoil that. I don't want to spoil that. I'm freaking glad you like it. Seriously. The more you like your food, the more you have a cosmology that works that's completely different than mine. Did you know that my life has actually improved? It's improved because you were parasympathetically in a digestive state of mind. And when you're in a digestive state of mind, you're not going to be inflamed. And when you're not inflamed, you know what happens? I don't get inflamed. I'm a sensitive motherfucker. I'm sensitive. That means I'm going to become the room. I become the room because that's how thick my molasses is. My plasma just pours out and fills the spots. And if the spot it fills is a tight ass, I'm going to be a tight ass. Why people like me. They're like, man, you really understand my tight assedness. And my response is, I know, it fucking sucks. It sucks. Because when I'm in my own world, man, I think highly of myself. When I'm in my own world, I think highly of you. But then when we get together and you start insulting yourself and you think it's cool, and I just don't want to, I don't have time to fight another battle today about why are you insulting yourself in my presence? Do you realize that this doesn't help you? In fact, it's just making me witness you debase yourself. Like, it's kind of like you're sort of like reverse masturbating in front of me. It's kind of weird. It's creepy, and then you can't explain that because you just got through trying to explain to this flat earther how you think that there's this sort of like gatekeeping thing going on. And he gets all freaked out and mad too. So, by the time it's 8 o'clock and you're trying to say this, you're tired. And then you still feel bad for what you said about Ken Wheeler. But dude looks like the Kingmaker from Game of Thrones. Who wouldn't want to watch that? Like, he's literally telling you everything's simplex. And if you only knew Greek, you'd understand it. So you could walk away going, okay, everything, he's got it figured out. It's fine. And I would follow him, but he told me clearly it's so obvious. This is exactly what Einstein said, by the way. Exact same tactic. Einstein said, well, maybe you're too stupid to understand it. It's actually not what Einstein said. It's what everyone else said who disagreed with Einstein. And what Einstein really said was disproven 7 months later. Like 7 months later. And when I say disproven, I'm talking about the majoritarians were finding that there were different things. And this is why I love string theory. I don't make fun of string theory that it's not valid. The mathematics of string theory is valid. We learned how to predict loops. We learned how to predict the mathematics of quantum loops, even though it's not true. And that's cool as fuck. And you can enjoy the fact that we've discovered all this quantum mathematics, even if you don't believe quantum mechanics is true. That's fine. I believe in belief technology, which means quantum mechanics would exactly have to be the medium for that. I believe in belief technology, which means melanin would have to be the dark matter that's in the world, i.e. the substance that none of us can admit is there, can see, because we're not comfortable with the Aedes, the Hades of it. And the flat earther gets mad at me for that because he thinks clearly I'm wrong because I'm suggesting dark matter's real. And no, the principles of dark matter actually prove to you that I'm suggesting that dark matter is not real. Because what is real is what we are willing to accept in our hallucination. Did you like how slow I said that? That what we consider to be real is what we accept in our hallucination. Now, ha is the window. Hey, aleph, hey, ha is the window into Luya. I did check my work. I'm telling you this is true. Just like Dalit, I believe, is the door. Ha is the window. And so the window of God is giving you its Luya through the hallucination, the light fermenting through the permeable veil. And the permeability of that veil works the exact same way your gut lumen does. You know why they call it lumen in the gut? Is because light shines through. That's how it got its name. So your gut is a luminescent, orifice of digesting reality. And I think it probably is the closest thing to explaining to you how reality truly works. That what you see in reality is actually what you choose to pull into your lumen. What you choose, the gut, what you digest is what you hallucinate. This is literally what's happening. And to hallucinate is to drink light through the window of reality, which could not be a more real definition of what's going on. This satisfies the principles of Maya. This satisfies the principles of all the cosmologies that suggest to you that there's a veil. And that veil is your gut lumen. The true essence of what you are, this enteric nature, requires that you be in a parasympathetic, i.e. a digestive state, so that you can drink through the light holes of God. You're drinking the light of God by digesting the hallucination. Your inflammation is going to directly compete with your ability to digest. This truth is at the essence of your belly. Like, it could not be more personal how essential this truth is. And I regret that it's not more entertaining and that I don't have the the vibe right to have hundreds or thousands of people, because I think you'd feel it even more simply by looking at how many people were watching or listening right now. That just that power of that mass witness would make you feel it stronger. Because what I see is that we're living in a world where the force of how many people are listening to an idea is pretty much the only thing that's driving whether or not most people will believe it. And I think a lot of that has to do with this majoritarian thing we're talking about, where going into the deep end is just simply unfathomable. Awesome pun right there, I just gotta say. But going into the deep end is just unfathomable. And so it becomes necessary to create a cosmology that prevents you from doing that. So when you start to look back at what schizophrenia is, as I was suggesting this week, it's a social disorder. The schizophrenic is having a hallucination and there's no one to verify. And if you want to know how terrifying it is to abandon the majority, it would look like schizophrenia. It would be that dangerous. Which is why so many people cling to the herd, isn't it? So like even that makes sense, really. You know? Like even that. It's I can't find anything wrong with the world. I could see pain deeper than anyone, I think. I could see torture. I could see how hard and struggle everyone is. I can see the agony of these people that are forgotten in so many different situations. Even animals forgotten that have fallen into a hole, or all the other things that happen, or babies that have been abandoned, or all the other stuff. I think this world is intense as fuck. And it's the same way that a rapist misunderstands violence for sex, the same way that we misunderstand vitriol for evil. It looks like the same color because our eyes are growing, and it takes time for us to understand the intricacies of the ripple. To see the roller coaster for what it truly is requires us to not be so afraid to die. And wouldn't it be exactly necessary if you were coming from a culture that was afraid to die, and you noticed that that culture suddenly stopped worrying about breeding all the time, that those two would be remarkably congruent? That if you were trying to wean yourself off of being so afraid to die, that it might look like a straying from a breeding kind of fertility, a focus on a mode of operation whose sole purpose was to reproduce, would be exactly the mode that a species would take that was terrified to die. And when that species stopped being afraid to die as much as they used to be, and started being afraid of losing sanctity, of losing the ability to fulfill their own fruit, that would look exactly like a breaking of the orthodoxy, a slipping away from the breeding lifestyle of insisting that there's two modes of being, and that suddenly people would blossom, and that the very curtails of that would look like what we would call a sexual revolution that would take 5 decades. And every decade would have different fits of cocaine and, and disco and all the other stuff that comes in between, and boy bands and Boy George and all the other stuff, because you're watching a petal unfurl like a bud on a rose. It would look exactly like this. And the ripping and screaming and the terror that you would experience on the roller coaster of just being a flower that was blooming would look exactly like this. The two lips of a tulip kiss you every day. This truth of what flowers are telling us, how pointless it is to yell at them for not blooming exactly when we want and not facing the direction we want, are all the signs of struggle that we have embracing this dimension. When we start to harness silence again, oh, you better watch out. I think that's when one of the things about movement is you get to insist that there's no way that the smell of what happened is still there. That's why when people fart, they get up and they move around. They think that that absolves them from it. that didn't happen. It's the same thing with hyena, right? He who smelt it dealt it is a principle of this kind of psychology. And if the true nature of the world would be that your chromosome may color body, then the true medium of the world would be colorful. And the ultimate color is smell. It's the only color. I say that because your neocortex doesn't get to paint that palette. It can paint the colors that you see, but not the smells. The best you could do is atrophy. And I think everyone that lost smell during Corona were trying to block out reality because it was too intense for them. And I don't blame them. It's an intense time. But even looking at that as a broken thing doesn't make sense for me anymore, because to me, the gauntlet of change was coming, and that I think people were throwing this big safety net to say, hey guys, it's not you, it's not psychology, it's not the universe, it's just this little virus. That's all. It's just this little virus. And that it gave people the avenue, the ability to compartmentalize a massive, massive turbulent shift into a new mode and not freak out so much. And the lies are as important as the lies that you tell your children when you say, oh, you can play this tomorrow. And you know that tomorrow they're not going to be able to, they're not going to fucking play with that. You know that because you guys are going here, you're going there, whatever. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. You know, we're all insisting, oh, we're people are trying to rule us. And it's like, no, you're begging. We've been begging them to rule us. And one of the things that we love is to be able to insist that we're not being ruled. It's the best perk of the government that we've made. It's one of the best things we've done. Brilliant what we've done. Yeah, we're going for a ride. All right, guys, how long have I been doing this? Should I go? You guys bored? You done with me? Are there any questions? Or any comments? Or any thoughts? Or any deep thoughts? There are deep thoughts. There are deep thoughts. There's so too much good, unworthy. There's a discussion about unworthiness. Yeah, there's a lot to read there. I don't know if I can read it all and understand that, but yeah, globers versus flatters. See, it's harder to even. I'm always doing this. I am always constructively criticizing my own. That's why people hate me. Is they hate me. They don't understand. I'm just like, if you were to switch to. But anyway, yeah, don't squeeze the shaman. All right, I'm gonna sign off. Yeah, I would love to hear your comments about a faceless stream. Would love to hear your comments about that. Oh my God, this would be a dream if this is how I could do it. It'd be great. It really would. Especially, and the only reason why, guys, is just because I'm just getting tired of people complaining about my face. Look, I'm sorry I have a face and it doesn't have hair. I mean, I get it. You hate my face. And you know what? I'm older now. And you think I'm one guy said today, you're reminding me never to shave my beard. It's like, yeah, I get it, man. You don't like the way I look. And yeah, I'm going to feel that because my job is to entertain you. And if me showing my face is causing you that much pain or dissatisfaction, one option is, yeah, I grow a beard, but man, I don't want to. Okay. I just don't. I'd rather just do something else for a living. Because then I'll just look, if I need to do something where I need to conform to some closeted gay dude who needs to look at me a certain way, I'll just go cook. I'll cook meth. I mean, I'm just kidding. I'll go do something else. It's just because I like to be able to change. When you guys met me, I didn't have a beard. I actually first started streaming without a beard. I guess you're saying because I was younger, it was okay, but now I'm older, you need to see a beard on me because you saw one once. And yeah, I could just forget it too, but also I wasn't here to be seen. I spent a good part of my life where people are like, oh, you're a good looking man. I realize that sounds arrogant, but I had a really good run. I had a great run where people were saying I was good looking. I don't need that. But also, if it's distracting you from enjoying the show because of how ugly I am apparently without facial hair, why don't we try this? Why don't we just do this? Because I am cool as fuck with this. I actually like radio because you can do other things. You can wash dishes. You can cut your toenails. You can, what else can you do? You can file papers. Fuck, some of you guys do that, right? You could, what else do people do? You like sweep something, Actually, I sweep. I'm a sweeper. I love sweeping. Sweeping is one of my favorite things. Anyway, I'll figure this out. I shouldn't have to ask you. But if you have any feedback, I'm always open to it. Always open to that too. So yeah. And yeah, late night time might be better. Beard's sense of issue seems like therefore we are squeezing the shaman out of love. Yeah, it's just weird. It's been that way for months actually. It's actually why I haven't really been streaming. Just because I can just tell people they don't just tell, they tell me, And it's like, I get it, man. I get it. You really just hate it that someone doesn't have a beard. Sometimes I ask people who don't understand flat earth is the closest object to us moving, just makes them enter into a new paradigm. Sometimes I ask people who don't understand flat earth, is the closest object to us moving, just makes them enter into a new paradigm. Yeah, Chaz, I don't know if this is going to blow your mind. I don't know if you're comfortable even to hear this, but I also want you to consider one really, really important thing. If you were to imagine the world as a zygote, your blastocyst, right? The moment that you were born, you were an Elohim. You literally were. You were a single cell zygote that converted into this blastocyst with a medulla, this medulla, I think it's called, this sort of like cranberry-ish sort of like red berry, basically. It's just a collection of all these cells, and that those cells are the first you, and that the story in Genesis of the Elohim is those cells, and that which I am would be what the medulla would understand itself to be. The blastocyst would be saying, oh, I am that which I am. But here's the big thing. In reference to you asking a ball earther, hey, do you believe that the object that's closest to us is moving away from us? That I realize that that's a paradigm that's like kind of mind-blowing, almost to an ontological disproof standpoint. But I want you to picture that if consciousness works in the sense of every cell that you occupy with your consciousness, i.e. the blastocyst that grows, if you track what's happening inside your consciousness, you're 16 cells long, and then you develop a hollow center for nougat. I'm just kidding. But you develop a hollow center, and then you, through osmosis, you pull water in for the very first time from the outside world. It comes from your mother's womb, of course, but you pull the water into you, and that water gives you your very first salt, your very first ability to record information. And so that means that your first memory would actually come from that moment, from that blastocyst. And if you were recording the extent of your universe starting from that moment until today, measurably, it would look like a Big Bang. What I mean is that your entire universe is those cells. It is those medulla. So all the mitochondria inside those cells, the nucleus of some of those cells, right? Because some of those cells wouldn't even have a nucleus. Some of those wouldn't be ready to be structured that complexly yet. But that each of those would have a collective consciousness that would only know itself. It would have no essence of the outside world ever, the same way you and I have no essence of our outside world outside of the firmament, for example. You and I have the opinion of objectivity because we are hallucinating that everyone around us is separate from who we are. And we do that because it's necessary to spatially place and store information that we can access later. So we create the ion channels that connect all of us simply because it gives us enough of the hard drive space to spatially separate all that is known. And if you look at it this way, from this perspective, then the cosmology of the Big Bang Theory itself, I'm actually telling you that Ball Earth itself would in fact still be true. The Big Bang itself would be true because the cells are the extent of your universe, and your universe is expanding faster than your consciousness can track. So that tenet, that cosmology, is, in my opinion, verifiable in both worlds, in both modes, through both frameworks, which is why I've had to come back and say Ball Earth is not wrong. Ball Earth is an aperture decision based on a level of comfort that allows the user to digest food, i.e., to sense, hallucinate, to drink from the liquid light of reality in just the right amount of way where they don't drown. I think that's all I'll say. Guys, girls, non-gendered, have a beautiful rest of your evening. Leave your comments if you have any. If you don't leave comments, I will assume that's your comment. So good job leaving a comment. You beat everyone else to it. Love you too, Eric. Love all you guys. Appreciate it. Thank you for listening. Sorry for crapping on people earlier. I really just want you guys to enjoy all the palette of ideas that are out there. Even when I'm telling you that there's some limitations, that's what I think. It doesn't mean I'm right, but that's what I've been feeling. Anyway, see you guys later. Have a good one. Oh, I'm still here.